My hands trembled as I held the torn pieces of the leather-bound passbook, tears streaming down my face while my father's cruel laughter echoed through the house. "That senile old man wasted his last breath giving you a worthless piece of paper," he sneered, throwing the fragments in the trash. But he had no idea that inside that passbook was a secret that would destroy him completely, and I was about to make sure he found out the hard way. Let me take you back 3 weeks. My grandfather passed away on a Tuesday morning, surrounded by flowers he'd grown himself. I was his favorite, the only one who visited him every Sunday without fail, who listened to his stories about the war, who helped him tend his garden. In his final moments, he pressed that passbook into my hands and whispered, "This is everything I worked for. Don't let anyone take it from you." My father barely attended the funeral. He was too busy complaining that Grandpa had nothing valuable to leave behind. No property, no gold, no inheritance worth fighting over. When I mentioned the passbook during dinner that night, he exploded. "A passbook? That's it? From some nobody bank that probably doesn't even exist anymore." He ripped it from my hands before I could stop him, tearing it apart while my mother watched silently. I spent that entire night piecing those fragments back together with tape, my heart shattered but my resolve hardening like steel. The next morning, I skipped school and went straight to the bank whose name was barely visible on the damaged pages. The building was old but dignified, tucked away in the older part of town where my grandfather used to live. The manager, Mr. Chun, was a distinguished man in his 60s. When I explained what happened, showing him the taped-together passbook, his expression shifted from professional courtesy to something like wonder. "Do you know what this is, young lady?" he asked quietly. I shook my head, unable to speak. He pulled up records on his computer, and his eyes widened. "Your grandfather opened this account in 1975. He deposited small amounts every month for 50 years, never missed a single payment, with compound interest over 5 decades. He turned the screen toward me, and I gasped. The number had 7 figures. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. Mr. Chin explained that my grandfather had structured the account specifically so it could only be accessed by me, with provisions that became active upon his death. There were also sealed letters, 12 of them, one for each year until I turned 30, containing his wisdom and guidance. "Your grandfather was a remarkable man," Mr. Chin said. "He came from nothing, worked as a janitor his entire life, but he understood the power of patience and sacrifice. He wanted to ensure you'd have opportunities he never did." I sat in that office and cried. Not sad tears anymore, but tears of overwhelming love for a man who'd gone without so I could have everything. Then Mr. Chin asked, "What would you like to do with this information?" I thought about my father's cruelty, his disrespect, his absolute certainty that Grandpa was worthless. An idea formed, cold and perfect. I withdrew a small amount, just enough, and hired a lawyer. We filed a civil suit against my father for destruction of financial documents and emotional distress. The court summons arrived at our house on a Saturday. I'll never forget my father's face when he read it, when he saw the account value listed in the claim. He tried apologizing, begging, crying. He suddenly remembered how much he'd love his father, how this was all a misunderstanding. But I looked him straight in the eye and said, "That senile old man you mocked built an empire $1 at a time, with more dignity in his little finger than you'll ever possess." The judge ruled in my favor. My father had to pay damages and publicly apologize. But the real punishment was watching him realize that the worthless father he dismissed had created a legacy that would echo through generations, and he'd never touch a penny of it. I visit Grandpa's grave every Sunday now, just like always, and I tell him everything. The passbook sits in a safety deposit box, but his real gift was teaching me that true wealth isn't measured in zeros on a page. It's measured in character, sacrifice, and love. And Dad, he learned that lesson far too late.